Good afternoon and welcome to Landell's Cutting Edge podcast. And today I welcome two guests, Alex Stillman and Paul Emery. Today we're going to be discussing schools, contracts for schools around MPS and how Landell services are positioned to help them moving forward. So I want to kick off really and introduce yourselves, and perhaps you can give us a brief intro of your history and your role within Landell services.
Thanks, Nick. Do you want to go?
Okay. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Alex Stillman, and I'm an account director at Landell Services. Been looking after accounts for the better part of 30 years. My particular specialism is in schools, whether they're a local authority, academy, independent, preschool, prep school, schools of all shapes and sizes, also universities and colleges.
Brilliant. And Paul?
Yeah, so my name's Paul Emery. Similar to Alex, I've been in the game quite a long time now, so 20 plus years. And yeah, I look after an array of different businesses, if you like, schools being one of them, as well as obviously small commercial SMEs up to larger corporate companies. So yeah, see it all, and still enjoying it after all this time.
Good. Thank you for that, gents. So obviously kicking off first, we've noticed since COVID there's been a change, volumes have reduced, contracts have changed, but not necessarily the suppliers haven't changed the contracts with the schools or with other customers for that matter. And today it's to get a bit of an overview as to what you're seeing out there in the market and how you feel Landell Services can help.
Well, I don't mind kicking off again.
Yep.
In my experience, schools have always been seen as a bit of a softer target from a commercial perspective, insofar as there's been some fairly shady practice over the years looking after schools and schools contracts. So I've spent quite a lot of time advising schools how to what the pitfalls of these contracts are, how to avoid them. Once they get themselves into a contract like this, how to extract them from it and how to give better value and fundamentally better service. Because while schools are supported on price through various different incentives and initiatives, that nearly always comes with poor service. Yep. So it's cheap for a reason in my experience.
And how have you found, I'm guessing from your experience, have you found account management? Because we've spoken earlier on a previous podcast actually of the lack of account management and vendor complacency. So I don't know whether you're seeing that in that arena as well in schools, whereby account managers do a contract or they put the contract in place and they don't talk to the school for a number of years.
That's exactly what happens. So and a salesperson will sell into a school and then they'll disappear until the end of the contract. Yep. And nearly always exclusively the person that then comes back to visit the school is someone different. It's not the same person.
Yeah.
And they tend to buy off price lists. So there's something in the schools arena called a framework agreement. This is an initiative from buying consortiums to sell to schools, not just schools, hospitals, councils, this sort of thing. And the pricing's low. The pricing is low both on purchase, lease and service, but it's low for a reason.
Yep.
There's no account management whatsoever. There's no proactive approach to the schools. And what you tend to find is that they're bought off price lists. There's no consultancy work, So
the contract buys it from the manufacturer and then supplies it onwards.
Exactly. And again, it's either manufacturer service. There are one or two independent suppliers that are also on it, but they're of manufacturer type size. So the service is you're a serial number. You're going to be phoning a call center.
Yep.
The chances of you having an engineer visit on the same day, very remote. It's probably a couple of days before someone will show up.
And the issue is, I suppose, in these circumstances, you have no choice about who the supplier is going to be.
Exactly.
Because there's only one, maybe two options. And if the service has been poor, there's nowhere else to go once you delve into this style of agreement. So, I mirror exactly everything you said. Poor account management, lack of communication, all these things are strife in schools. And I suppose it might go hand in hand. You could argue that because the margins are so low, because schools do get better pricing start points, maybe there is less appetite for account managers to be that concerned about it.
Yeah.
Which is wrong, especially with schools, because look, I've got young kids. I want their school environment to be the best it can be, and I'm sure many others feel the same way. So, yeah, that would be one of the biggest bugbears I find in the industry.
Yeah, I think it's totally the right way around to have better pricing for schools, hospitals, councils.
Yeah.
Public money should be spent wisely. I totally accept that. But I think the pricing that comes, the service, the package as a whole is not what you call value for money, and that's where it's let down.
And there has to be an element of margin in it for the supplier to deliver that service and to want to take it further, to integrate technology,
Absolutely.
to provide best technology, because otherwise it's a race to the bottom and you don't necessarily get the best equipment, best quality equipment, best service, and also the ongoing support and service. I think that's what's key, because we've noticed from our IT services side, we noticed that by not having sort of patches or firmwares updated, we noticed the vulnerabilities open up on the security aspect and all sorts of areas within businesses or schools, etc. So if the supplier's not got the resource or funding available because it's been initially sold so cheap, then there's no way for them to be able to continually optimize that solution.
Well, you're absolutely right. And the other thing with these types of agreements, especially with manufacturers, is they want to push their own software solutions, which are 9 times out of 10 proprietary.
Yeah.
There's no independent advice. And once you've bought that software, you're stuck with that manufacturer. So you can't have the freedom to choose going forward. So, there's little or no professional services or IT element. And schools, again, rarely do they have a fantastic support from an IT provision point of view.
Yeah,
I've again, working with a lot of third-party IT companies. Most of them, in my experience, don't really understand print.
yeah.
So they rely heavily on Landl to provide that support.
Yeah, fine. Just today, actually, we're delivering to a large school, Paul, that you won recently, where we helped them save a considerable sum. That school, I don't know if you want to give us an introduction, not necessarily name the name, but talk about the solution, talk about what you've done in there, and just give an overview to our listeners, please.
Yeah, so it's a private school. Probably, I don't know if it'd be relevant to name drop at this moment in time without their permission, but it's a private school in the Guildford area. They had a very aging fleet of machines. So we got in conversations with them maybe 9 months ago now. So it was a fairly long period of time in comparison to how these things usually pan out. But we got in conversations. We were patient and we were led by their timeframes. And so revisited it at the start of this year. And on our first investigations and going through their fleet, how much volume they were doing, they were paying an absolute arm and a leg for machines that they were getting very little value from. So we put forward a number of options to bring them up to date, improve not only the print and quality aspect of the equipment, but also their security, any vulnerabilities on the network, improve their print management, and all goes hand in hand with reducing cost, reducing paper reliance. We've dropped in some new aspects, for example, follow me printing style, so they don't have to necessarily print to a specific printer.
Yep.
It can just be print onto a queue, and then that job can be released at any device throughout the school, which they absolutely love. It's gone really well. So as we speak,
That rolled out today, didn't it?
It's being rolled out today. Our guys are still on site. It's quite late in the day now. I think knocking on for 5 o'clock, but they're still there, making sure it's all up to speed and everything's ticking over nicely. The reason it took so long was they wanted to do it at a certain point during obviously summer, half term and stuff. So there was less distraction and less issues internally. But yeah, a fantastic win for Landl.
And that's a contract style whereby it allows them flexibility, doesn't it, through terms, closures of school, etc., where they're not contracted to minimum volumes.
Correct. Yeah. We wanted to highlight some of the issues with their existing agreement, and maybe some of the niceties and unfairness of it. And we've put in a very transparent, very easy contract for them to understand, where we simply provide a pay-as-you-print basis.
Yep.
So that That way, they're not charged, for example, when the school is shut.
Yep.
Because we're seeing a changing world, and volumes are dropping, but schools still print. They are changing their methods slightly with the introduction of handheld devices for in some cases for children, so they're not solely relying on printouts and workbooks and stuff like that. But having said that, there's always going to be an element of a huge demand on paper. And it's unfair to be charging schools when they're closed over summer and things like that I have seen in the past, where some suppliers will commit them to minimum volumes and such. So it's always schools is maybe a separate category from commercial or corporate businesses because of the how they're run and when they're closed and things like that, and it's not always a straight line in terms of average volumes.
And I guess there's not, Alex, bringing over to you because you've looked after them for a long time. There's not kind of one size that fits all, is there? Really, I think every school's different, aren't they?
Literally every school's different, and as Paul has alluded to, we're now in 2025. And that school's introduced a Follow Me queue for the first time.
Yeah.
So there are still a great deal of schools that need some guidance and some help. And again, I found that just because they got print management, it doesn't mean that it's been set up properly.
Yeah.
Very rarely do you see print rules put into place.
Yeah.
So, for example, you would default queues to black and white. You default queues to double-sided output. You can set up regular reports for department heads. You can cross-charge from one department to another. There's all sorts of things that this software can do that a lot of schools
don't know about.
Yeah. So
I think in addition to that, I think in the corporate world, where obviously we also trade, I think they're kind of the technology that we're talking about now has gone beyond print management. It's well beyond that. It's talking about the automation, the digitalization of documents, and the transformation of their business using AI. I think that will probably filter down to schools over the next 5 to 10 years. And we're well positioned to help them do that now, help them have those discussions now, look at new areas of innovation, because print volumes have declined up to probably 70% in some instances. And having the ability to be able to talk of our experience in other sectors, the corporate sectors that we look after, and showing what they're doing, bringing that to schools, I think there's some good journeys there that they can benefit from new technologies.
Yeah, especially I'd say in the independent sector, because they tend to be more run more like business.
Yeah,
and that is filtering down, and we're seeing a lot of people in the bursar's role that instead of coming from traditionally armed forces backgrounds, they still do, but there's a great many that come from corporate backgrounds. And they bring with them a lot of experience, and so I enjoy working on the IT front with those individuals because that we can bring more to the party.
And it's not all about cost. It's not all about cost.
It's not all about cost.
We obviously sustainability is a big area of ours now. Our marketing team are working on offsetting the full life cycle of the device.
Yeah.
So the environmental, and obviously concentrating on helping customers reduce their impact from biomass and carbon created from the devices. So obviously, as a business, we're helping customers transform in multiple areas. So yeah, I guess that's currently where we're coming from. From a school's perspective, just leading back to the contracts and some of the pitfalls that we found, are there any other things that schools should be looking out for? How would you typically address, how would you highlight those areas? Because obviously schools, as we were talking about earlier, not just schools, but a lot of businesses are, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So they won't address it. They won't review what they have.
Yeah.
Or they're closed shop. When we have a team reaching out, most of them don't want to engage on initial cold calls and things like that. So how would you go about, just from people watching this that might find us another way, what would you suggest to those listeners?
I think the two biggest areas that I've seen in schools that schools purchasers should be aware of, I don't know if you found the same, Paul, but tiered billing is the first. So tiered billing is where a device from certain manufacturers can be programmed to have 3 different billing tiers. And the idea is it's sold on a very, very low cost per page, attractive number.
Yep.
So that would be tier 1. But what's not seen is that tier is based on a very low coverage of toner.
Yep.
Okay, so the chances are it's so low, below 2%, and in the school especially,
in a school where
you're going to get a
lots
lot
of
more
pictures,
coverage.
Yeah.
So it goes up to the tier 2, which can be whatever you want it to be, or tier 3. So, a headline cost of, let's say, tuppence roughly for a colour sheet, people will be attracted by that.
Yeah.
But when you reach tier 3, I've seen it at 10p plus.
Fine. So that's all a hidden charge.
It's a hidden charge.
That's not known at the point of contract, really.
Exactly. So tier billing is the first thing I would advise to be very cautious of. And the second thing is something called development count.
Yep.
So any print device works on a CMYK process: cyan, yellow, magenta, K, key color, black.
Yep.
So every full color page is made up of 4 passes. And I've seen machines programmed in development count mode. That's how they come out the factory. Okay. Suppliers such as ourselves change it from that test mode, development mode, into page count mode. But a lot of suppliers keep it in development count mode. So again, very, very low service page cost.
So very attractive when a customer takes out
Very
the contract,
attractive.
yeah.
And the thing is that because the meters are still in this development count mode, when they go to scrutinize the volume on the device and they say, well, we can't have printed 20,000, the counter will show 20,000. The invoice shows 20,000. It's accurate.
Yep.
But what they don't realize is instead of 1 page cost, they're fundamentally paying 4 times more.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of that.
With alongside hidden loaded lease rates,
Yeah.
which there's been a change in, obviously, the government or regulation being introduced as to having to declare commission.
Mm-hmm.
And as a business, we don't load any of our lease rates. We offer true lease rates because that's what we do as a business.
Yeah.
In the fairness and openness to customers. So I'm guessing loaded lease rates are something to look out for. Loaded base prices to excess levels. Yeah,
and also contract types as well, because especially when you get to academy/LEA style schools, they're governed by rules which state that there has to be residual value.
Yep.
But there's no governance over what that residual value is. There's no governance over whether or not that residual value is contracted or not. So at the end, I've seen contracts where the school thinks the contract's finished.
And they have a massive bill to pay.
They have a massive bill to pay.
Fine.
So, the devil's in the detail.
And how would you suggest those schools go about addressing those, looking at it, making sure they're fair, making sure they're on the right contract? I'm guessing it's engaging companies like us, for instance, yourselves.
It would be, unfortunately, because it would technically be benchmarking against what they've been offered and getting a second opinion. Obviously, from ourselves, I'd like to think most other suppliers work in a similar way, but you can't rely on that, and probably not in experience. But we look at it from a consultancy approach, and yes, there's many different contract types, there's many different types of agreement or manufacturers that we could put forward, but typically we will ascertain what's right for them based on a number of variables, and then put forward the most cost effective but provides the most value as well. So other suppliers might be pushing certain contract styles because they're more profitable. I would always just advise to benchmark and get maybe 2 or 3.
Even
involved.
if they're mid-contract or...
Yeah, 100%. Mid-contract doesn't necessarily have to be at the end, because if you're waiting for something to get to the end, it means that maybe you haven't or you've paid too much for the remaining 2-3 years of it. So we could utilise some of our partnerships with some of the leading manufacturers, which will create buyouts and get customers out of lengthy contracts that might be more or too high in cost effectively.
Yeah. Especially notice periods. A
Notice
lot of people get caught
thing,
out by notice periods. Because a lot of them are, well, the notice period has to be exactly a year before the end of the contract, and if you don't give notice then it rolls for another year. Yep. So, as you say, you might have term left on the agreement and think, well, I'm going to look at it in 2026. You should be looking at it now. Yeah, fine. Because you need to give notice to the finance company and obviously the service provider as well. Fine. And just closing off before the last point, I guess, that I want to cover off is we've negotiated with some manufacturers, haven't we? Some specialist school pricing. Yeah. Which would be beneficial to the listeners. Yeah. Which is near on government level supported pricing levels, which we can actively put out there. So. Yeah, I guess anyone listening who's questioning whether
or hasn't reviewed what they do should reach out to either of you two, and we can put your details.
Yeah,
on,
I mean,
on
we get it. If you work in a school, you're busy.
Yeah.
And there's not always enough time in the day to be reaching out and speaking to the likes of myself or Alex. But it will be worthwhile because we can ascertain whether they're getting true value and maybe just benchmark against what we could potentially do. And at least then it's peace of mind at the very least if they do nothing and stay as they are. Good.
And yeah, so this will reach out to our listeners on email. Hopefully, we're going to run an email campaign where we're reaching out to schools. So hopefully they'll get it from the email campaigns and watch this podcast. But appreciate you joining, chaps. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.